In today's Adobe Illustrator tutorial, we will create flat style girl on the pier. You will see how to redraw this minimal illustration from Sketch with Pen tool, how to add interesting live look to simple shapes with roughen effect, and then we'll learn how to add, adjust and change shadows using clipping mask, blend tool, blending modes and gradients. After this tutorial, you will have much better control on all your artworks and will be able to easily experiment with shadows in your illustrations. You're watching TNT tutorials, let's move on and create a new document. Select Print, A4, Horizontal Orientation, in Advanced Options select RGB and click on Create. You can download this sketch, reference and colors by the link in the video description. I also recommend you to download Swatches palette, then click here on Swatches, select all these colors, delete them all, then click here on Swatch Libraries menu, Other Library, and find Path to downloaded swatches. You will see this window. Just click on these folders one by one. Now, as you can see, we have them all here. If you want these color icons to be as large, just click here and select Medium or Large Thumbnail View. Now close this window. It's up to you to decide what to use, this color palette or Swatches palette. I will use Swatches because it's more professional, and you'll be able to change colors in your illustration later by simply changing these colors in these palettes. Let's create new layer, rename it to Sky, bring this layer down, we need Sketch layer to be on top, select Sketch layer, Properties, and change opacity to 50%. Then lock this layer, select Sky layer, Swatches. As you can see, I've separated colors by objects in this scene. So now we need color from Sky folder. Let's just click on this color, select Stroke and click on None. M for Rectangle tool, and create rectangle like this. Then lock this layer, create new layer, rename it to Girl, Swatches, let's find Girl folder, it's over here, pick this color, P for Pen tool, let's just redraw this shape first, like this. We don't need to create many points, just try to repeat the same as I do. Hold Alt to create sharp corner. Now A for Direct Selection tool, and let's manipulate points. Like this, just take your time. If you don't get needed result very quick, that means that you simply need more practicing. So just don't create too many points and manipulate handles and anchor points with Direct Selection tool. You can zoom out to see what result do you have. Make sketch layer invisible sometimes to take better look at the shape that you have drawn. Let's pick this color now. P for Pen tool. Let's start from this point. You don't need to drag handles like this all the time, you just need to create points, hold Alt, and move handles like this. Let's connect these points here. A for Direct Selection tool, and manipulate handles. You might want to match reference ideally, or experiment with this shape and change it any way you want. Now we have some sharp corner here. To avoid it, with this point selected, Properties, convert selected anchor points to smooth. This part won't be visible, so we can build sharp corner here. With direct selection tool and this point selected, hold Alt and just drag this handle like this. Let's make sketch layer invisible. This allows you to see curveness of these lines much better. Let's bring this layer down. Make sketch layer visible again. Swatches. Let's pick this color. And now let's redraw neck and dress as one shape. Right after this, we will apply clipping mask. And this will give us great control on designing dress on her body. A for direct selection tool. So basically you don't need to match reference ideally with pen tool, because later you can use direct selection tool and change anything you want. So now as we have this shape created, let's bring it down like this. Swatches. Let's pick this color. M for rectangle tool. And just draw a rectangle like this. Bring rectangle behind body layer. I will make sketch layer invisible. Select these two layers. Right click. Make clipping mask. Now open this clip group. Select this silhouette. Swatches. And apply the same color as we had. You could do the same by pressing A for direct selection tool, picking any shape you want and changing color. So with direct selection tool, I'm selecting our rectangle. I think I need one more point here. P for pen tool, add point. With this point selected, properties, and let's convert selected anchor point to smooth. Now bring it down like so. And change shape any way you want. So with clipping mask, you can select our base shape, change it any way you want, and you don't need to adjust dress to body, because you have huge white rectangle in this clipping mask, and while you're changing body in borders of this rectangle, you don't need to adjust dress. You will need to adjust rectangle only after you will do something like this. Then you will need to pick rectangle and change its proportions. So this method is very handy, very professional. Use it all the time in your work. You might want to add one more point here to change design to this. Now let's make sketch layer visible again. Swatches. Let's pick this color. P for pen tool. After I zoomed in, I can't continue with this line, so I need to hold Alt, drag handle from this point, and continue. With direct selection tool, I'm changing proportions here. I have sharp corner once again, so properties, and let's convert selected anchor point to smooth. Always try to zoom in, zoom out To see overall picture and to have better control on objects that you're editing, don't just work all the time in the same zoom in. Let's make sketch layer invisible. Let's continue. A for direct selection tool. I will move this shape like this just a bit. Then P for pen tool. If you have some difficulties with pen tool, just try to simply repeat the same steps as I do. Because I'm not doing something hard, it's very easy. I always try to create as less points as I can, and then I edit them and handles with direct selection tool. Let's make sketch layer invisible. Let's continue with other leg. I see that I need to add one more point here. And after this, I'm just moving other points. I think I will leave this result. Let's bring these two layers down. There's a lot of tutorials with step-by-step guide on how to use pen tool on this channel. You can check them out if you have some troubles with pen tool and you can't draw this character properly. Let's make sketch layer visible again and create pier. Swatches. Let's find pier folder. It's over here. Let's pick this color first. Create new layer and rename it to pier. Let's bring this layer down. P for pen tool. Let's draw a line here with hold shift to build straight line. And let's connect these points. A for direct selection tool. With hold shift move this point like this to match reference. Now let's deselect this object. Pick this color from swatches. M for rectangle tool. And let's draw a rectangle here. On this step I already see that we can cut artboard. Just press Shift plus O and cut it like this. Then you can simply press V for selection tool. When you're creating a scene like this, you might have a lot of objects outside of the border, and if you don't want to apply clipping mask here, and in the same time you don't want to see all these objects outside of this artboard, you can click here on View, Trim View, and you can work in this mode. All objects that will be moved outside of line of our artboard won't be visible. It works almost the same as clipping mask, but to view all objects outside of this border, you only need to click on View and deselect Trim View. Let's create new layer, rename it to C, bring this layer down, Swatches, C folder, let's pick this color, M for rectangle tool. Let's draw a rectangle like this. Now when you have this boring line, and to make it look more live and interesting, you don't need to add more points, move them, and add some kind of curveness here. All you need to do is to select Object, Effect, Distort and Transform, and select Roughen. Click on Preview, select Smooth, Absolute, and play with these proportions. As you can see, you can get a lot of variations here. For this one, I will use minimal values. Let's try these ones. Let's make this object wider. I think I will leave this result, but if you don't like your result, select this object, Properties, and you always can change Applied Effect in this panel. Just click on your Applied Effect, Preview, and play with values. Now let's add some elements here. Swatches. Let's pick this color, for example. P for Pen tool. Let's just draw these elements according to reference. Change proportions like this. Now let's duplicate this one. With Direct Selection tool, we can make this object wider. Let's pick darker color here. Let's duplicate this one and reflect it. Now this is great time to use Trim View and edit these elements with this view. Let's lock this layer, create new layer, and rename it to Coast. Swatches, Coast folder. Let's pick this color. P for Pen tool. And let's create hills like this. Bring this layer down. I will delete unnecessary points. Now let's create clouds, create new layer, and rename it to Clouds. Swatches, Clouds folder. Let's pick brighter color for now. Now we can apply roughen effect also. Let's just create shape like this. Duplicate it. I'll make sketch layer invisible for now. Now select them all, Effect, Distort and Transform, Roughen, Preview, Smooth, Absolute, and play with values. I will click OK. As you can see, we have interesting shapes now, and we almost didn't do anything. After this, you can change their proportions even more. And this effect will be adjusted to changed shapes. Now let's create new layer, rename it to Seagulls, Swatches, Seagulls folder. Let's pick this color. Click here to swap fill and stroke. Make sketch layer visible. Let's lock clouds layer so it won't distract us. P for Pen tool, and let's draw a line like this. Properties. We can change stroke width, then click on Stroke and change Profile to Profile 1. Let's make sketch layer invisible. I think this one looks great now. Let's create another seagull. Properties. Apply the same profile. Let's change width here. And I will show you how you can experiment with such shapes to make them look more interesting and realistic maybe. With this shape selected, Object, Expand Appearance. Now this is not line anymore. Let's delete one of these points. Let's just change width of this object here and make wings a little bit wider. P for Pen tool. Let's delete these points, select this one, Convert selected anchor points to smooth. You can do the same here. I will add one more point here. We just want to make a look that will be different than this one, and that from distance it will look like real bird. Let's delete these points also. We can add one more point here. We don't need any details, any anatomy. We just need to change this shape a bit, and it should have just some interesting look from distance. I think you get the main idea. Let's just don't get too crazy with this one, because it will be really small, like this, and from distance it looks really great. You can make some wing wider than another, and let's just leave it like this. Now let's duplicate this one, make it smaller, change proportions maybe, like this, swatches, with stroke active, apply this color. Let's duplicate this one, and change proportions again. I'll make it even smaller, like this. Now as you can see, these shapes look more playful now. They're a little bit different, they do not have any details. This is what we want. Now let's create flip-flops, create new layer, rename it accordingly. Let's bring it up like this, and lock pure layer for now. Swatches, let's swap fill and stroke, with fill color icon selected. Let's find flip-flops folder, and pick this color, P for pen tool. Let's just redraw this shape, like this. As you can see, I've created only 4 points here. Now let's pick white color, swap fill and stroke, P for pen tool. Let's draw one line like this. Hold Ctrl, click somewhere to stop drawing this line, and create another line here, like this. Now let's select them both, Properties, Stroke, Round Cap. Now let's make sketch layer invisible. Select this line, Shift plus W for Width tool, and let's just play with this width a bit, like this, just to make these lines look more live. Let's change width. Let's do the same here. Alright, I will leave this result. Now what we can do here, duplicate this layer like so, to the distance that you need. Let's bring this copy down. Swatches, pick this color. Now let's press W for blend tool. Click on this object, then on this one. Press enter. Select specified steps, click on preview, and I will enter 50 here. Click OK, then Object, Expand. Now we need to deselect with Hold Shift first layer, release Shift, and with Hold Shift deselect this layer. With all middle layers selected, Properties, Unite. Let's go to Swatches and apply this color. If you pick A for Direct Selection tool, you will see a bunch of unnecessary points. You can delete them one by one with Pen tool, like this. Or you can select them all with direct selection tool like this. Deselect object. You must make sure that you've selected only points. Then object, path, remove anchor points. Now I have only 2 points here. Let's do the same on this side. As you can see, all these layers are grouped. You can ungroup them. Layers. Let's make this layer invisible. A for direct selection tool. Let's pick all these points. Deselect this object. Deselect first point and last point. Then object, path, remove anchor points. And you have only needed points here. Let's make this layer visible again. I did this because I wanted to show you that you always need to have clean objects with as less amounts of points as you can get. Now let's group these objects. And you might think that you don't need this layer. If we will delete it, nothing will change. But we will need it to create shadow. For now, let's duplicate this one, properties, and let's reflect it. Let's place it like this. Now as we've created all objects, let's add shadows. First I will show you how to create shadow with the blend tool. Let's select this layer, which is bottom layer of this object. Ctrl C, Ctrl F. Let's just leave copied layer where it is right now. Let's select this one and move it anywhere you want to. Let's select them both, swatches, and let's pick this color. We've picked shadow color from pier. I'm talking about this color. Now to avoid any misunderstanding, I will make these two layers invisible. W for blend tool. Let's click on this object, then on this one. Press enter. Specified steps. Preview. Let's change this value to 50 for example. Click OK. Now let's make these two layers visible. And if you'll pick this object with direct selection tool, then press V for selection tool, you can move this shadow to any direction you want and as far as you want. If you have some other objects behind this shadow, with this object selected, properties, opacity, and select multiply. Now you can play with opacity here, change it like this. Also in such cases, when you have shadow falling like this, you might want to adjust shadow to this object. You will need to select this blend, object, expand, click OK, and then click on Unite in Pathfinder. Now the same here, we have these unnecessary points. We need to pick only them, and to do this, we don't want to lock all layers in this scene. So you just can simply double click on this object with selection tool. Now it's isolated. A for direct selection tool. Pick all unnecessary points. I will deselect this one. Object, path, remove anchor points. Let's do the same here. Object, path, remove anchor points. Now we can adjust this shadow to other layers. Properties, opacity, multiply, P for pen tool. Let's add point here and here. Now we need to make sharp corner from this one, so hold Alt and move this handle like this. Now let's create one more point here, like this for example. Hold Alt, adjust this shadow. And then all you need is to follow your idea or reference. When you know how your shadow falls, you can just adapt it to other objects with this method. You just need more practicing, and you should have some reference. Obviously, this shadow can't fall on this part in this case, so all you need to do is to arrange, bring to front. Then you can continue to adjust this shadow. Change opacity, and so on. What I should notice here, you always need to watch shadow in real life, look at references, and when you're creating shadow, you should be confident in what you're doing. You should remember about angle of falling light, and accordingly about angle of falling shadow. So for this case, I will press Ctrl Z to undo. Let's pick this one. As you might notice, it's very easy to adjust angle of falling shadow for your objects with this method, so you can experiment a lot. If you're not sure about angle, you don't need to expand these objects, because later you might want to change light direction. What you definitely need to do is to practice this method, because in some cases it works a little bit differently. Now let's apply shadow here. Let's make these two layers invisible. Ctrl C, Ctrl F. Let's move this object here. Select them both. Swatches. Let's pick this color. W for blend tool. Pick them both. Enter. Specified steps. I will enter 50 here again. Click OK. And now I will show you a little bit different way. Let's make these two layers visible. Now pick only this one with direct selection tool, properties, and you can change its opacity. Then you can move it. If you want to make this blending more smooth, W for blend tool, press enter, and enter bigger value here. You can also play with opacity of this object, like this. And you can get some really interesting results. So there's a lot of combinations. The most important here is to get the main idea, use it in your own artworks, experiment with it, and get experience. I will change opacity here to 100% and move this shadow like this. If you want to rotate this shadow, A for direct selection tool, pick this object only, and you can rotate it like this. So it gives you even more possibilities to adjust shadow. Keep that in mind. What you can also do is with this object selected, Effect, Blur, Gaussian blur, click on Preview, and you can blur it like this. You have some rough transitions here, so it's better to blur all objects, not only this one. Select all this blend, Effect, Blur, Gaussian blur. Then you can continue to adjust this shadow, change opacity of this object, and get some different results. You can always change Gaussian blur here in Properties. I will delete this. I will lock this layer. Now let's add shadow here from girl to this pier. Let's unlock pier layer. Swatches. Let's pick this dark color. M for rectangle tool. Let's just draw a rectangle like this. Now let's bring this pier layer up. Select these two. Right click. Make clip in mask. Now A for direct selection tool. Pick this layer. this silhouette, this clipping path, swatches, and pick pier color. Now, why do I create such simple shapes? Because when you are not sure how you will adjust shadow, you just need to adjust it quickly, zoom out, look at your result, see if you like it. I will apply trim view. And then if you will be sure with direction of shadow, maybe you will decide to rotate shadow like this, for example. You will play with this shadow like this. You will also need to place all layers, like these ones, behind this shadow and apply multiply mode to this shadow, just as I showed you with flip-flops. So you're playing with this shadow like this. I've decided to place it here. And what I know, that shadow will fall from this arm also. So I'm creating it like so. And now it's time simply to add more points and to adjust this shadow. Properties. Let's convert this selected anchor point to smooth. The same here. Why didn't I just drag this dot? Because it creates two unnecessary points for me. I just want to control this shape. I will add more points if I will need to. And now you're simply drawing shadow. You can imagine when her shoulder is. So shadow will fall like this, for example. Just play with anchor points, it's very easy to do. You will get a lot of experience with this method. Just imagine that her hair is here. So this part will be more smooth than this one, because shadow falls something like this. You should always imagine how lightning falls to your scene. Let's add one more point here again. We don't need shadow in this part. Let's move it here, like so. As you can see, absolutely nothing hard. You're just adjusting shape to your idea. And you can always change it, change proportions, or falling of shadow. I will remind you again that to understand shadow, you should always notice how shadow works in all artworks that you see, because shadow is everywhere. It helps to highlight some objects, to make them stand out, and to add volume. I think I will leave this result here. Talking about volume, you can see that we have some flat shape here. Let's fix it. We will lock pier layer. And sometimes you don't need to find some specific color for shadow. It can be any color because you might want to use some blending mode, multiply for example. Let's just select girl layer, P for pen tool. And let's just draw a shape like this. Now let's open this layer group. and bring this shadow to this clip group. Now with this shape selected, Properties, Opacity, Multiply, and change opacity. Now the same as you are in clipping mask, it's very easy to adjust this shadow and to play with proportions. Just do it like so. Try different combinations, zoom out, see what works for you the best, add points or delete points. Now you might want to make shadow even darker in this part. So let's just do this and create shape like this. Then bring it to this clip group, I for eyedropper tool, and pick settings from this shadow. Now you can adjust this shadow like this. Change opacity. You can also play with some blending modes. Sometimes you might want to pick soft light maybe. It depends on situation, so you should always practice it and try different combinations. You might want to even change color of these shadows. Let's pick RGB here. You can see that when we are changing color, with multiply mode active, this shadow looks different. So basically, if you want some warm color, you can open swatches and pick this color, for example. You can play with some cold color. You can see it better on white part. So it's up to you to decide. It always depends on situation. I think that cold color will work better here. Now what I also wanted to show you is how it's easy to play with shadow, try it out, and apply it to your illustration. For example, you don't know, do you want shadow here in this part or not? So you can just try it in a few seconds. Just pick any color, draw shape like this, then select this layer for example, right click, arrange, bring to front, select them both, make clipping mask, deselect it, A for direct selection tool, select this layer, apply the same color, now select this shape, adjust multiply mode, play with color if you want to, and just zoom out, try different opacity, zoom out, zoom in, try proportions, like this. I mean that you can do it even quicker. I'm almost sure that I will create shadow here, but when you are not sure, just create some shape, adjust shadow, and take a look if you want to use it. So I will leave this one here. The same with highlights. I think that I want highlight somewhere here, but I'm not sure. It will take only a few seconds. Let's pick this color, P for pen tool. Let's draw some shape like this. Select this object, arrange, bring to front, select these two, make clipping mask, pick this one, change color, and bring this layer down. Now A for direct selection tool, and play with this shape. You can experiment and try to create some lightning here. Just create such line and zoom out. You will already see if it works for you, and if not, you can delete it. So basically in the same way, I will adjust shadow to all these layers. I'm just creating any kind of shape. I for eyedropper tool to pick settings from other shadows. Arrange, bring to front, make clipping mask, adjust color once again, and play with shadow. Let's match this line here, like this. In the same way, I will adjust shadow to legs, so I think you get the main idea, that it's really fast and easy to do. What else I wanted to show you here is how you can play with gradients when you're creating shadows. Let's just lock girl layer, unlock pier layer, select this shadow, gradient, linear gradient. Let's double click on this marker. Let's pick this color here, and the same color for this marker. With this marker selected, let's decrease opacity. G for gradient tool, and you can play with shadow like this. You can get a lot of combinations also. Select this shadow and blur it. Like this. You can always change gradients, and you can always change Gaussian blur effect here. So I will simply press Ctrl Z and I will lock this pier layer. Now let me show you how you can add volume to such flat object as this one. Let's just pick this dark color, P for pen tool. You can simply create some random shapes like this, any kinds of shapes. This method works very well with landscape. Now let's apply clipping mask here as usual. Arrange, bring to front, select all objects, make clipping mask, apply this color for coast. Let's just play with these shapes to get even better results, more realistic results. Play with combinations and proportions of these shapes, see what works for you the best. You can even add some objects like this. Now let's lock this layer and add some shadow to clouds. Swatches. Let's pick this darker color for clouds. M for rectangle tool. Just draw it like this. Let's apply clipping mask. And with this shadow selected, Effect, Distort and Transform, and select Roughen. Click on Preview, Absolute, Smooth. Play with these values. And you already have some interesting shadow for your cloud. If you want to change proportions of this shape, just add more points and move them like this. Let's add some final touch to this image, create new layer, and let's rename it to noise. Now let's pick some color like this, for example, M for rectangle tool, draw rectangle like this, effect, texture, grain. You can play with these values. I don't recommend you to make intensity too big, because when you're zooming in, you can see that it really doesn't look very well. I really do not use this technique very often, only when I need some quick texture, so it's more just like sketch texture, not like serious texture for your artwork. Let's press OK, Properties, Opacity, and you can play with blending modes. You can pick Soft Light, Multiply, change opacity, and so on. For example, we have Overlay here, and it doesn't look really great. But if you will change opacity, you will get this great result. So you should play with different types of blending modes and try how they work. In conclusion, I would say that in such illustrations, you should always make sure that all objects are logically separated to different layers and groups. Also, when you're adding shadow, think of it as a part of illustration, make it work for you, and if you feel that you don't understand how shadows should look, just try to find references that will help you to make everything correct, and then use tips from this video. If you learned something new from this tutorial, drop a comment below, let me know if everything was clear enough for you and what you liked about this video. If you enjoyed this tutorial, support this channel by clicking on subscribe, and what's most important, by clicking on the bell icon to get notifications about newest tutorials from TNT. I would also appreciate if you'll click thumbs up and will share this video. This was TNT Tutorials. See you in next videos.